Hi everyone, I am back. So as promised, I'm here to read you the next bit of our book, which is The Magic Finger. So if you've missed yesterday's, you can always go back on our YouTube channel and you can have a look at the one that I did yesterday. Then you can look at today's to follow on. Don't watch today's first because then there'll be spoilers. So before I start, you might have noticed that I've got this teddy bear sat with me today. So I saw a really lovely thing online, and I know how good you've all been at the rainbows, and when I go on a walk every day, I'm seeing just hundreds of rainbows in windows, and they really make me smile. So I saw a thing online where people put in teddy bears in their windows for anyone really who's out exercising to spot. It's just another nice thing to look at. So this teddy bear is going to sit in the window of my house, and I wondered if you wanted to do the same. And if you do, send us a little picture of your teddy bear or your soft toy sitting in your window just to cheer people up on their daily walks. It's going to sit there and listen to the storybooks today. Yesterday, Mr. Greg and the two Greg boys had been hunting, and they had caught a young deer, and this really upset the girl in our story. And she had then gone on and put the magic finger on them. So where we were up to, the last little bit that I read said, "I shall now tell you what happened." It doesn't say that at all. It says, "I shall now tell you what those things were. I got the whole story from Philip and William the next morning after it was all over. In the afternoon of the very same day that I put the magic finger on the Greg family, Mr. Greg and Philip and William went out hunting once again. This time they were going after wild ducks, so they headed towards the lake. In the first hour, they got 10 birds. In the next, they got another 6. "What a day!" cried Mr. Greg. "This is the best yet!" He was beside himself with joy. Just then, 4 more wild ducks flew over their heads. They were flying very low. They were easy to hit. Bang, 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 went the guns. There they are, shooting at the wild ducks. The ducks flew on. "We missed," said Mr. Greg. "That's funny." Then, to everyone's surprise, the 4 ducks turned around and came flying right back to the guns. "Hey," said Mr. Greg, "what on earth are they doing? They really are asking for it this time." He shot at them again. So did the boys. And again, they all missed. Mr. Greg got very red in the face. "It's the light," he said. "It's getting too dark to see. Let's go home." So they started for home, carrying with them the 16 birds that they had shot before. But the 4 ducks would not leave them alone. They now began flying around and around as the hunters, They now began flying around and around the hunters as they walked away. Mr. Greg did not like it one bit. "Be off," he cried, and he shot at them many more times, but it was no good. He simply could not hit them. All the way home, those 4 ducks flew around and around in the sky above their heads, and nothing would make them go away. I think Mr. Greg's looking quite confused there. Late that night, after Philip and William had gone to bed, Mr. Greg went outside to get some wood for the fire. He was crossing the yard when all at once he heard the call of a wild duck in the sky. He stopped and looked up. The night was very still. There was a thin yellow moon over the trees on the hill, and the sky was filled with the stars. And Mr. Greg heard the noise of wings flying low over his head, and he saw the 4 ducks, dark against the night sky, flying very close together. They were going around and around the house. Mr. Greg forgot about the firewood, and he hurried back indoors. He was now quite afraid. He didn't like what was going on, but he said nothing about it to Mrs. Greg. All he said was, "Come on, let's go to bed. I feel tired." So they went to bed and went to sleep. When morning came, Mr. Greg was the first to wake up. He opened his eyes and he was about to put out a hand for his watch to see the time, but his hand wouldn't come out. "That's funny," he said. "Where is my hand?" He lay still, wondering what was up. Maybe he'd hurt his hand in some way. So he tried the other hand, and that wouldn't come out either. He sat up. Then for the first time, he saw what he looked like. He gave a yell and he jumped out of bed. Mrs. Greg woke up, and when she saw Mr. Greg standing there on the floor, she gave a yell too, for he was now a tiny little man. He was maybe as tall as the seat of a chair, but no taller. And where his arms had been, he had a pair of duck wings instead. There he is with his duck wings. Oh dear. cried Mrs Gregg, going purple in the face. My dear man, what's happened to you? What's happened to both of us, you mean? Shouted Mr Gregg. It was Mrs Gregg's turn now to jump out of bed. She ran to look at herself in the glass, but she was not tall enough to see it. She was even smaller than Mr Gregg, and she too had got wings instead of arms. Oh, 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 sobbed Mrs Gregg. This is witches' work, cried Mr Gregg, and both of them started running around the room, flapping their wings. A minute later, Philip and William burst in. The same thing had happened to them. They had wings and no arms, and they were really tiny. They were about as big as robins. Mama, 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 chirruped Philip. Look, Mama, we can fly. And they flew up into the air. Come down at once, said Mrs Gregg. You're much too high. But before she could say another word, Philip and William had flown right out of the window. That's where we're going to stop for today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Remember to send us pictures and things and let us see the teddy bears in your windows. Bye everyone.